We have significant joint initiatives and on the implementation of future projects, but in everything related to, let's say, current, daily, everyday exchanges and information, but above all also cooperation and support where it is necessary. We also discussed, of course, the current situation regarding the oil industry in Serbia, while we await a response from Washington. What is certain and what we know is that Russian owners need to relinquish their ownership, as this is primarily a request for the sanctions to be lifted. We will see, I hope, during today or tonight, what response will arrive that primarily concerns the continuation of the oil industry's operations in Serbia during the negotiation period. We receive extensions for new licenses from the American government. When we sent letters of support for the demands of the oil industry in Serbia, Hungary also did that. The government supported us in that, because they see that if there were disruptions in our country's supply, it could have consequences for the entire region. What we have also continued this year are joint discussions on the construction of a new oil pipeline that would connect Serbia and Hungary, and we noted today that it is important for those discussions to continue and for that project to proceed, and for its implementation not to be jeopardized by the current situation regarding the oil industry. Projects like the new oil pipeline are strategic. They are not short-term. They do not concern the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. They concern the next 30 and 40 years, and that is why it is important to continue their implementation, to make it even faster, even more efficient. As you know, it is about a 113-kilometer-long oil pipeline on the Serbian side. The estimated value of the project is about 156 to 160 million euros. We will, of course, see that when the public call for the works is announced. If we need to release our mandatory reserves into the market, we have the support of the Hungarian MOL, alongside other oil companies, primarily OMB and Eco Hellenica. I have already held meetings with all 3 companies at the beginning of this week. I will continue to ensure that, if the need arises, these companies can release a certain portion of our mandatory reserves into the market. Of course, we are expecting. Of course, we are eagerly awaiting to see what the response from the U.S. government in Washington will be. They are the ones who decide on sanctions, while we are the ones who, we can provide additional assurances that the Russian owners will exit the company's ownership. We gave those additional assurances yesterday, led by the president of the country, and publicly. And in that sense, we believe there is absolutely no doubt that this will happen. It's just a question of timing, as the American administration has already given permission for the negotiations to be conducted until February 13th. They have started, but cannot be concluded in 7 or 8 days, and that is why we asked for additional time, and in case they are not successful or if the U.S. government does not approve, the state, along with its relevant institutions, will step in and do what is necessary, make certain decisions in order to maintain control over NIS so that it would no longer be in the hands of Russian ownership. What we hope, in any case, is that these negotiations will be successful and that they will be approved by the U.S. government, and that NIS will continue in an unhindered manner and with the ability to operate in our market and to remain one of the most significant companies, as it has been until now.
There is a package called Repo-Ware EU that Brussels wants to push through, and with this package, Hungary is being placed in an impossible position, as they want to prohibit us from purchasing energy carriers from Russia. You Serbs understand exactly what this could mean from a Hungarian perspective. This forceful decision by Brussels would mean that Hungary would be one of the, instead of 2 oil pipelines, Hungary would have to base its oil supply on 1 oil pipeline. 1 oil pipeline instead of 2. This would create a vulnerable situation for Hungary, as vulnerable as the situation you are in, precisely because the country's energy security depends on the supply from a single oil pipeline. Brussels wants to put Hungary in this situation too. And we see what it means to depend on a single oil pipeline in vulnerable situations. And not only because, if in a given case, a war also breaks out, then sanctions are imposed on someone. Not just because, let's say, the seller gains a monopoly position, increases the transit fee, doesn't deal with the modernization of the pipeline, or with increasing its capacity. Because even setting aside all ill intentions, a technical problem, a technological issue, or sabotage can practically render a country completely vulnerable. Therefore, if they look at it from Brussels, they will see what challenges Serbia is currently facing after crude oil pipeline is required to supply the country. They could see exactly what they wanted to entangle the Hungarians in. Serbia's oil supply is ensured in the future, despite any difficulties. Serbian friends can count on this with confidence. Now, how is all of this happening? Because so far I mentioned it after meeting with the foreign minister, but I'm announcing that perhaps we can go further here. The situation is as follows. MOL, which is Hungary's largest company and one of the most significant in the region, is ready to further increase the supply of crude oil and oil products to Serbia. In November, MOL doubled its supply. In December, this increases further, and in the last month of the year, MOL will increase the supply of crude oil and oil products to Serbia by 2.5 times. 2 such lessons must be quickly learned, and steps must be taken. One is that we must act as decisively as possible, and we have to do everything to prevent those initiatives in Brussels that prohibit the transfer, so all of that must be suppressed and not allow them to close these routes through which we supply ourselves with energy. We won't praise energy politicians, but I believe that the more routes we have, our energy security and yours will be even better. The greater the number of oil and gas pipelines, the fewer the problems will be. It could help Serbia, and do everything to ensure that Serbia does not have problems with raw materials and energy sources. Therefore, politically, legally, and in every other way, they will take measures to somehow prevent the consequences of Brussels' intentions. And, of course, we didn't speed up the construction of that lead. Our friends can and must rely on us. Thank you very much.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.